Peapod jewelry is a collection of fine designs by Rana Lugosh. Each piece of jewelry is created and assembled at the gallery, conveniently located on US Route 1 in Edgecomb, Maine. I begin each design with a sketch. From there, I sculpt wax to form the first model. Here's an example of a wax ring carving. This wax model will be filed, ground with rotary tools, and sanded to perfection. Then I attach a small piece of wax called a sprue to the model, which will create a channel through which the melted wax will exit. The wax sprue is affixed to a rubber base, and a steel can called a flask is inserted into the base. Plaster is poured into the flask and surrounds the wax. When the plaster is dry, the rubber base is removed, revealing where the molten metal will enter. The flask is put into the kiln to melt out the wax, and then the metal is cast into the cavity. After the casting, the metal model is refined, polished, and stamped with my insignia. From our metal model, we make a rubber mold. This mold allows us to make multiples of the design. We press the rubber mold against the pressurized wax injection pot, and hot wax squirts into the mold. When it has cooled, we remove the wax pattern. Here is the wax pattern of the dragonfly and the queen pea. When all of the patterns are completed, we put them into another rubber base. So now, instead of one model on a rubber base, we have multiple pieces which will be surrounded by a large metal flask and filled with plaster. When the plaster is set, we'll put this steel flask into the kiln to melt out the waxes. Now my assistant Jen will demonstrate the actual casting procedure. A ceramic crucible inside of the casting centrifuge is heated up with a torch. When the crucible reaches the correct temperature, Jen adds sterling silver pallions. Once the metal becomes liquid, I'll remove the steel flask from the kiln and place it in the cradle of the centrifuge, and the spring is released. The centrifugal force pushes the metal into the steel flask, filling the chambers where the wax had been. The hot steel flask is placed into a bucket of cold water, which forces the plaster to break away from the casting. The remainder of the plaster is carefully removed by hand, revealing the silver pieces. When the silver is clean, we cut free the individual silver designs with a jeweler's saw. A file is used to smooth the area where each piece was attached at the sprue. An abrasive wheel is used to remove the rough spots. The silver is smoothed, polished, and then shined to perfection. And lastly, the jewelry is assembled. Peapod jewelry is open year-round and available online at www.peapodjewelry.com or at our spacious gallery in Edgecomb, Maine, located right on Route 1 just over the Wiscasset Bridge. Peapod jewelry, bringing people together.